Hello, Cardstack community. My name is Chris C., the founding director of the Cardstack project, coming to you from the land of Web3. Today, I'm going to expand on the Boxel idea that I've been communicating with you. There's three talks. This is the third in the series about Boxel, which is a building block for the decentralized Web3 application that taps into various protocols and combine them so the user can control over the digital assets, whether that's on-chain or on a computer, and be able to share with whoever they want. And think about Boxel for a second. It's been about the developer experience. What does it mean to build a Boxel from JavaScript, the foundational language of the web? And we have actually expanded on in a previous episode talking about AI, about how, because AI is so good at generating software, we can actually use that to regenerate some of the software that people are using on a day-to-day basis on different SaaS apps and mobile apps and recreate them in an open source way using Boxel as a way of representing them and putting them back together. Today, we're going to shift the focus a little bit on the business application. Like, what kind of things can you build if you use Boxel as a building block, not just for software, but to think about what kind of workflow, especially as it interacts between businesses, the idea of collaboration across organization boundary and where Boxel can kind of come into play. So first, a little quick refresher course on what Boxel is. This is the beautiful logo of Boxel. Boxel really is three things combined. It is a development framework that's focused on composability, so a composable framework. If you missed that, I have a talk on the system for composable app. Please click on that link and take a look at that video. And that gives a basic foundation of what is the software characteristic, the computer science concepts behind this idea of composability around type system, design system, and emotion system are working together. It has a curated catalog. So Boxel is not something you need to make from scratch. You can go to a catalog of pre-built things representing invoices, forms, people, addresses, and phone numbers, or even high-level concept like application packets and other type of things that you would expect to have a PDF or Word document template. You can get it, and it is a fully functional web application. You can just add as a field or as an element of your application. And to make a curated catalog, we can have developers do them, or we can use AI to look at all the possible software that we can create and see if we can generate it from AI's understanding of it, and then curate it with humans and or other developers going to improve on that. So that's the Generating Boxel with ChatGPT talk that I have also linked above. Today, we're going to focus a little bit about, assuming you have that framework and you have the catalog that you can draw from, how do you interact from a business user point of view to this capability that Boxel provides? So that's kind of what we want to zoom in today on the operating environment. And we're going to look at it from two perspectives. One is a little bit of, if you're within an organization, how do you organize your Boxel? And we use a concept called space. A space is a spatial concept, kind of like folders in a way, or desktop. And you can organize these Boxel of different types and search them and share them and move them around just like files, except each one of these files actually represent a fully functional application with this application state that you can just share. Between organization, shared folders don't work as well. Workflows, which is based on the idea of email thread, which is that you attach something, you send something, you decide who gets it, and they get it and reply to it. That type of more messaging workflow fits very nice together. So Boxel sits in between the intersection of space and flow. On one hand, you want to be able to navigate these Boxel like they are a record in a database and search them and filter them and find them. On the other hand, you want to attach a thing you find or use a thing that you have already pre-created. It could be a template, a form, and then apply it to a conversation or add it or share it or post it. So this all oscillation between organizing it at rest within your organization and organizing it more in motion, where it's this idea of intentionally copying it and sharing it outside the organizational boundary that allows us to have the control of privacy, but also this ability that you won't accidentally share a link or file you're not supposed to, or have something that your counterparty in your company can't access because it's in your internal system. So Boxel has a very unique duality between being comfortable within very safe environment and also in kind of more of a neutral environment, which we'll get to in a second. So let me give you a little glimpse of what we're working on space. So we are working on this concept called here, there, where you want to be able to have a workspace and then find another workspace and copy between them the way you will open two folders and copy between them. And that idea here is that this experience that I'm about to show you is about using this idea that you can open up these slots, almost like new workspaces, as another element on your screen. So an editorial workspace is where you, work on new blog posts. And your own workspace, which is your own private space, will be on the right, on the left. So once you open the two workspaces, these blog posts or bio can just drag and drop just like files. So in Space, we take advantage of the fact that people really understand how to move things around, attaching things or uploading them. And we say, well, let's continue this metaphor, except and give us all the benefits of the type system. So when you click on this blog post, which we'll show in future demos, you can actually see the different fields, fill in the information. And these blog posts can contain other fields like media type, and those media type can contain other information. So anything that's a Boxel can be nested from a workspace to a particular post, to a field within a post, to a media type within that field. So that's how Space works. On the other side, once you have these box already created, you can, like a customer or payment order summary, you can now share it between people by using this idea of a workflow or like a thread. People who use Discord and chats are quite familiar with this information. And this is where information can be shared. As say, hi, Julia, I haven't charged a credit card, send the information. And as you kind of go along, these things are essentially kind of embedded into these workflows. And then that's how it crosses on a essential boundary. People who are familiar with workflow from the expectation of PDF know that there's certain document you cannot share. You have to make a PDF, which is flattening, or take a screenshot. Boxel had this capability of linking to things sometimes when you're just looking at it as being referencing other records you have about vendors and customer. But when you share it, you want to have it contained with it. You want to kind of reify it, embed it together. And we have both a link to and contained relationship within these Boxel relationship, which allows you to kind of essentially make a copy of it that you can share safely. Now, if you get that copy back, the reference is still there, so you can link it back to a record that may exist in your system, but they may have new information, such as a new address from a vendor may say, hey, do you want to merge this change back to your internal system? So it's a safe way to oscillate between space and flow. So today, we will look at it from a business lifecycle point of view, which is within the business, what is the pursuit that drives the lifecycle of people using software or coordinating to each other. So typically, I would say most businesses would like to spread the message about what they do, gain leads so they get customers who are interested or potential customer, make a deal with those that want to buy, and then get paid. And to do that, there are many vertical slices of software that they do to facilitate. They have to have tools to interact with search engines and content management. They have tools that integrate with social media to get the word out there. They got form solution to capture user information and data and interest. There are marketplaces that you might connect to get their customer onto your platform or their platform into your business kind of arena. And then you have to give them a quote, send them some either PDF forms or in some way get them to sign a contract with like a DocuSign or something like that. And then once you have that, then you have to go and get them to get paid with it as credit card or bank transfer, and of course, crypto payment. So this business life cycle, different companies will have completely different set of tools to do these very basic four things. Doctor's office do it differently than manufacturing businesses, but generally speaking, people need to know about you. They need to be roughly interested. You need to know where they are. You got to make a deal with them and you got to get paid. So if you look at company A and company B, a buyer and seller or something like that, they have to coordinate with different tools for each aspects of these things. Fill out this form on this platform, make a deal using this checkout process, or send me a Word document or whatever it may, get paid in some ways. And let's just focus on making a deal. Like the actual, you already know who you're dealing with, you already know what you're talking to. Let's go make a deal. So company A would say, I'll send you a contract. Let's, to have you review it and say, hey, here's a link to the SaaS app to give you a quote of the thing. And then the company B is like, I can't even view this thing. Can you send me as a PDF? And say, hey, here's a PDF. And they would say, oh, great, I can get it approved. I'll send you back the signed PDF. And then the other person say, I can't really accept the signed PDF like this. Can you do it on DocuSign? And then, oh my God, what a groan. So a lot of what's going on in between the companies is this kind of center part is where you have a lot of messaging application, email attachments, and in places like China, everything's done through WeChat. I'm sure people use Discord and Slack in different way, or Microsoft Teams. And it really lacks structure. Whatever the discipline that exists within your organization process, inside your organization, certainly doesn't exist. Depends on whether it's company B or C or Q or X or Y or Z, different pairs of relationships and tools has to come to that agreement. So that's essentially between two companies, there is a problem for, and certainly an opportunity for, structuring the communication better. Because as we know, business lifecycle communication, which is communication within and between the organization. Within the organization, you're good. You've got a chosen platform, you know how it works, you know the understood process, you've got data standards and templates. But to between organization, all that goes out the window. We just fall to the lowest common denominator and say, what can we both agree on? We agree on an Excel spreadsheet. We agree on just using something on a public website instead of using our platform. And that tug of war of whose platform to use. Oh, do you come to my platform to fill up my form to get my invoices? Usually the bigger organization wins. So between company and company A, the negotiation of do we use DocuSign, or some guys say, let's just use Microsoft Teams, which some people love and some people really don't want to have anything to do with. It would be good if there's a neutral space that sits between company and B, where they both have sovereignty and control over it, but not like on someone else's servers or trying to have to be guests in someone else's kind of like systems or platform. And that's where the idea of protocols, not apps. Apps are owned by companies and installed by them. Protocols are shared infrastructure between various organizations, could be two, could be many. And that's essentially what's the most interesting thing. What is the protocol, or plural, protocols we will need to coordinate company conversations between them so that they can go through the entire business cycle from finding each other to making a deal to getting paid? Now, obviously, this neutral space is the internet, is something that is outside of a particular company's own domain. And you would think that, the first thing is it's going to be Web3, it's going to be a blockchain. But the truth is, the blockchain is encompassing many things, but one of the things it does really well is it has a shared idea of what a thing is. What is a token? What's an NFT? There's a definition. If you say, I'm going to buy that NFT from another person, you already agree on kind of what the shape of that media wrapper looks like. So shared domain model, the shared template, what the thing is, what the nouns and verbs, how it describes of it, it doesn't have to be blockchain. It could be just a domain model that exists in a catalog that is describing just kind of templates in web forms. And that's what Boxel does. We've talked in previous talk, the Boxel allows you to construct fully functional web application that looks no different than a SaaS app, but in fact has an open source code base underneath it that allows you to render a domain model. Once you add the fields and customize the forms and get a developer to add something, they can be shared like a Word document, except they are not just a file, they're actually something that can be composed in this operating environment that we're talking about. So the shared domain models agreeing on what an invoice is, what a quote is, what a payment is, what is the basic fields of an address, a tracking number. If we can agree on those domain model, that's the beginning of the protocol. The second part of the protocol is really about like, who are you? Are you represent company A, or are you just some random person? And this is where we want a federated protocol, which means that each organization essentially create here's all my participants, here's all the people that represent me. And any of these people that represent me, my directory of either employees or agents or consultants or customer service people can now interact on behalf of the organization. So it's a federation, but they can message each other. Now, in the financial realm, people use Bloomberg terminals. If they have a Bloomberg terminal, they can show up as a hedge fund or something like that, and they can do deals. On the web, that's possible, but when you're dealing with more consumer platform like WhatsApp, it's not clear if that person is really representing a particular organization or trying to scam you. So there is a protocol that's emerged in the last 10 years or so, I believe, or maybe 5 to 10 years, which is called a matrix protocol, which is really interesting because it's a totally open source protocol. It works like Slack or Discord, but it's actually based on this federated model where you can go to your organization server or find a hosting company who host it. And once you get an ID, you can actually interact with multiple other parties that also have an ID, but representing your organization in a relevant way. So the ID aspects of identity verification allows you to gain some permission within shared spaces, which is like group DMs that neither company A or B owns, but they can both vouch for the people in there and know that that information is safe. Now, there are some situation where you need some global state. You need some global database to say, this is something that is existing on a ledger, like a blockchain, that says these are the companies that can do business that are kind of approved, or these are the people who are high risk, or these are the people that is part of this membership network, or these are the people who have staked and therefore have some economic interest in ensuring bad actors and stuff like that. And that information may allow certain things to happen or prevent certain things from happening. And that's something that allows, whether you're messaging company A or company Z, you can look into this registry and say, do I trust this person? So that idea of a membership system built on chain enhances the trust that comes from this federated messaging and allow those domain model to have a way to reflect real entity on the other side. And obviously, if you're talking about blockchain, you can certainly use it for settlement. And settlement sometimes about payment, so you can use crypto payment, but sometimes it's also about an asset representing on chain. It's like, hey, only one of these can be out at the same time, and only one company can rent the use of this particular facility. You can use a ledger to encode the availability of that thing and then say, this is now assigned to this particular lessee or renter, and they can move afterwards. It's the fulfillment and settlement of a particular asset, if that makes sense. But the important thing here is that the protocol we're talking about in neutral space is not entirely dependent on the blockchain. It can be enhanced by this global state and registry. The most important part is the top two part, to have an idea of what information, invoices, quotes that is being shared and what the domain model is, and a mechanism, a protocol to share them. So if you look at it visually, the shared domain model is this purchase order. It has a field of customer payments and order summary. And that is now embedded into a workflow, which is one of many steps of process that gets through step by step by step. This chat room is actually, a real chat room that you can invite different people and they can synchronize. You can see the history. So if another person like a manager comes in and says, hey, what's going on with here? Why this is not working out well? They can go ahead and see the history of it and then act on it. So this idea, the workflow, can also include components that are payment oriented or something that will interact with a blockchain or something that requires a signature. And that's the third part of it. So you can think of this matrix room or these kind of chat thread as the container of the history of transaction within this particular sequence of flow. So related action that leads to that goal of getting paid or making a deal. And then the parts of that is these kind of domain model represent the payment and invoice, stuff like that. And it could also represent many different things. It could be planning a trip. It could be a booking, an itinerary, a hotel confirmation. These are all things that can be contained that way. Now, the great thing about messaging is that it's real time. So that if you're on your phone, you can see, oh, something has happened, or you can approve something on your phone, whether your phone is just a kind of emoji, okay, or it could actually be tied to a Web3 wallet. You're actually signing on chain transaction, making something happen. So the combination of these three things is the neutral space that allows company A and company B to collaborate each other and structure the communication without having to resort to going one of the platform and being owned by one person versus the other. Now, with these protocol in place, what we're coordinating is not just workflow between two businesses. We can do workflow across many businesses that kind of roughly agree on these basic vocabularies. Because Boxel, as a concept, as a building block, is organized into nouns and verb. Can be either nouns and verb. Nouns would be like a booking, a quote, a flight, a hotel. Things that represent like a thing. A verb would be what you can do with those things. I want to purchase the thing. I want to approve this quote. I want to book this flight. I want to pay this person. I want to reserve this hotel. I want to refund this purchase, right? These are all things that if you give me one of these now, if you give me a receipt of it or some record of it, I can go ahead and make modification by running some logic, doing some kind of script to say, given this now, given this booking, let me go refund it, let me go through the confirmation number and find something and go to my backend system or my drawers or folders and then actually reverse the process. And the reason why this is important is that recall we say the Boxel has a capability of doing accept and adopt. So accept is when you say this particular field accept an invoice. You can also say that this particular invoice accept the action called pay, right? But I don't know how you're gonna pay it. I accept a different way of paying. So you have essentially a way of saying, can you be more specific about how you're paying? So you can adopt, by using the Boxel Framework, a new script that interacts more specifically with the blockchain, in this case with USDC, with a token represented, ERC20 token represented on chain, and say, if you want to pay, you can pay with USDC. I accept the amount of denomination in USD and have a way of converting it to USDC, which should be relatively trivial. But once I know how much it is, I have a set of rules that I can go and execute against a blockchain, against a wallet like MetaMask, and actually execute a transaction. But every place that says I accept the action of pay can accept the payment with this more specific implementation with USDC. But it's not limited to that. It could be pay, but pay with BankY. Pay, but adopted to pay with Stripe, which is a specific API for doing that. It could be pay with Visa. It could be a Visa card or a new program if Visa comes in. Now, it applies to other action like approve. You can approve, in a simple way with PDF. You can also approve with a Web3 signature, something that requires a private key to sign. You can reply with just a thumbs up in like a Slack message, or you can approve with your voice with a voice print that's checked against the previous database to make sure that you are the person saying a particular word to make that happen. These can be extended over time through the adoption chain capability, so that as we get started, we start with something simple that is expected, that's within the genre of chat or within the genre of Web3. But as we expand it and augment it, these approval rules can be approved with a game, approved with multiple people signing a multi-sig. These are all possible. But when it's the end of the day, the concept of approval is understood by other part of the system, this is just a more specific way of doing approval that can be extended by developers. And same thing with reserve. It could be reserving with United. And what I like about the idea of reserve is this is about integration with a third-party system. So United would get the airline information or the intended flight and give you back a real record from their database or mainframe. And it could be reserved with Kayak or Amex, or even a protocol like Unlock, which is a Web3 protocol that does membership, maybe reserving a spot in a concert that is unlocked by NFT ticket. They all have to understand what is the basic shape, a domain model of the reserve action. What does it accept? What kind of field, what kind of form fields does it require? What are optional? And based on that, you can build a whole network of these things. So adoption chains of work allow the system to start with compatibility, pay, approve, reserve, and extend for adaptability and integration with backend systems or future system in the blockchain and Web3 and certainly on AI as a way to connect the user's workflow. But the key here, going back to where we begin, we want to give the user an operating environment, and one of that is a flow. So it would be a purchasing thread. So in this case, we have basically 3 participants in this group chat or this purchasing thread. There's buying company, Betsy Buyer, B, with the icon, and selling Inc., which has Sally Sales, and a checkout bot, a bot that deals with maybe the warehouses and stuff like that. So that's kind of essentially what's here. So Sally Sales put the quote out there and say, this is the quote. I don't know what your approval process is. Just please approve this. And then Betsy Buyer said, okay, I can approve it, but my approval method within my company is pretty archaic. It's going to be through PDF. So they substitute that action with a more specific implementation that is provided by a buying company as an implementation for this approval action. And this approval action, when Betsy clicks on it, will capture the latest quote from this thread, convert that quote into a PDF, and then email to purchasing@buying.com. And then it will come back and mark in this thread that has been approved by Betsy or by someone that Betsy has escalated to. What's interesting about this little box here, This is actually kind of like a command line program. When you click on this approve button has access to everything that's in the thread. So the quote, the message, who is it? So this is really cool. Like it's like a bot in a chat room, right? When you talk to the bot, it kind of knows what has already happened because it has access to chat history. It's a very powerful thing. You just don't have to like click and fill in all the information. It's almost like when you're buying something and you've already been chatting with a sales agent, you can say, I'm ready to buy it. Okay. You expect Sally sales to look up in the email thread and figure out which one was the thing you want to buy, which color was it, what's quantity. It's like, well, let me confirm what this is, but you don't have to like restate it. And that's the thing about chat that's interesting is the context is available to the action. So the action can use what has been shared in this thread, right? Which everybody has visibility as long as you're in the room, and actually go and actually automate that action against these external systems. So this is now approved with Betsy doing the PDF approval. Now the checkout bot, and this is a bot, detected that something has been approved. This is not a human action. Sally could be on vacations, or it could be late at night, and say, hey, please give me your payment. I know you've approved the PO. We accept USDC or Visa. And Betsy Buy can now drag this card or pick from their library one of the compatible methods. But because this is a crypto payment, it will change the action from a generic pay to pay with USDC. And because of that, when you click on this button that says play with USDC, it will pop up MetaMask to sign it. Now, Selling Inc. may accept USDC, but it didn't do any integration with MetaMask. This is not a dApp. This is just a workflow they created. This idea of pushing the decision of what type of integration from the front end toolkit or UI to the back end integration is done very, very late. It's when two companies, so two groups of people works together. They then determine based on which voxel they use, which voxel within the adoption chain, to figure out what are the logics that may run. If you pay with Bankwire, the information that's required will be different. What I love about this system is that the library on here, which is right now all the filter payment method, can look at this thread and say, oh, this is what the thread or the selling company is asking for. Do I have something that matches that? That information, what's on the library, is not visible to the other participants. So your library is private to you. So there's a really nice kind of a division between whatever you put into the group chat is visible to all, and then will help with automation and bots. But if you haven't put it in, that company cannot look into your Gmail G Drive. You have to explicitly share it the same way you have to explicitly share a photo from your camera roll to WhatsApp before other people can see it. You don't want everybody to see everything you've taken, right? So this library acts like a camera roll, but you can search and filter it based on voxel that you might have created already at the time or saved from previous transaction, or say, you know what, I want to repeat this order. You can just take the quote or previous receipt and say, can you start from this and I want to reorder again? And a different workflow and action can pick up that information because it's available in the thread and suggest, hey, it looks like you want to do a reorder. So it's a really flexible way to use this primitive of voxel nouns to actually make that happen. So as you can see, Cardstack is really integrating the Web3 aspects of it with chat, which is a protocol we've been working a long time, which, you know, you looked at our card pay application with the card bridge, we're using the chat paradigm to even help you bridge protocol tokens between, or USDC between two L1, L2s. So chat as a way to sequence that has been something that we've been working on. But with recent advance in AI and like ChatGPT, people see that the chat paradigm, the ability to talk to, and in this case, a bot, is pretty like spiritual. It's pretty useful. But what's interesting about that is a pretty lonely thing. You're just talking to one AI. With a real chat protocol like Matrix and a domain model that understand not only English and words, but understand types and forms and formats and sharing of media types, we're able to get the AI to do something even more profound, which is matching not based on words, but based on type, based on what you're filtering by, and then allows you to reuse something without having to re-enter them. If it's an address card you're reusing, it will just find your home address and put it in there. You usually only get that behavior when you're within Amazon with a long time kind of history with them before you get that kind of recovery of existing context or history. But with Boxel, once you start building up a library, you can reuse those components with any company, A, B, C, D, and decide which one to share it back out. Each time you're sharing it, you're doing less and less data entry, and your library grows and grows as you have the information returned to you as receipts and stuff like that you save back in there. So this movement of data that is between organization in flow enriches the space you're in. The stuff that you have largely is made by other people. Your inbox is probably the most valuable view into your interaction and things you have because you were sent to you, or you sent it to someone else, or you sent to yourself. So we believe this symbiosis between space and flow allows you to model business processes, not only for internal organization to kind of organize its own work, but more importantly, and this is what's most lacking, to facilitate coordination, which is between companies and organizations. And this has been the Web3 vision that's been a little bit limited by the fact that you can't move everything to the blockchain. But by introducing Boxel in a chat paradigm, we have this lightweight messaging layer that doesn't require the heavyweight cost of a blockchain that allows most people to do everything they thought they need to do in terms of exchanging data with trusted party, in some cases on a totally encrypted basis, like an encrypted chat room that you share with people. You may be doing a deal back and forth, and only you and the other person know the content, the value, and the amount. Now, if you settle on chain, that may be public. If you settle on the privacy chain, that may not be. But the idea here is that depends on which Boxel you use, you can choose your privacy model and your automation model as you are comfortable with connecting those Boxel that is being shared and being made visible to your backend system or your internal processes. I hope this is helpful. This is a little bit of a push into the realm of use cases, even though the expect use cases is really going to be created user. As a framework kind of project, we want to make sure that we have the building block and the catalog of pre-built components. Then people are going to assemble them into the workflow that hopefully not only fulfill their need within their business lifecycle of making deals and getting paid, but also forming new relationship, possibly on-chain relationship, where new networks forms without the need for centralized marketplaces and centralized companies standing in between as a gatekeeper or a cash flow siphoner between two organizations. So Cardstack is proud to bring Boxel into the world. We're working very hard right now on the space aspect of it because it gives us a lot of the ability to give user the ability to move things around themselves, copy things between realms. But the next thing we're working on is to automate those movements using the action, the verb system we've talked about as a way to coordinate and automate interaction between companies, individuals, and with AI automated at the edge so that you can just say, hey, fill this in for me, and then we can find your library and automate those actions without a lot of clicking. So that's the plans going on right now. Some of the UI you've seen here is UI that's actually being actively worked on this sprint. And we'll continue to keep the community abreast of our development around this Boxel system as we extend to the Matrix protocol and implement this chat-based realm underlying our runtime and system. And until next time, I want you guys to take care, and we will keep you up to date on our progress. Thank you.